A journey of rediscovery, understanding aging through John's eyes, waking up to change. The morning sun filtered through the curtains, casting soft golden light across John's bedroom. For a moment, everything felt just as it always had. The familiar warmth of his home, the scent of freshly brewed coffee drifting from the kitchen where his wife, Sarah, was preparing breakfast. He stretched his legs off the bed and stood up, feeling that first sharp twinge in his knees. It was small, like the faint crackling of a forgotten joint, but it was enough to make him pause. It wasn't the first time John had felt his body protesting. At 75 years old, he knew that his bones, muscles and joints had weathered decades of wear. But today, something was different. It wasn't just the pain, it was the sudden, sobering realization that his body was changing in ways he could no longer ignore. What had once been a daily joy, a brisk morning walk through the park, now felt like a daunting task. John took a deep breath, rubbing his aching knees, and sank back down onto the bed. He wasn't one to complain, but today the weight of his years pressed down on him in a way he hadn't expected. The question he had been avoiding for weeks now seemed unavoidable. What if this pain wasn't just a fleeting discomfort? What if it was something more permanent? As he sat there, lost in thought, Sarah walked in, her gentle smile softening the moment. She had always been the heart of their home, steady, calm, and nurturing. She noticed the look on John's face and the way his hand rested on his knees. "You should talk to James," she said softly. "Maybe it's time to get it checked out." John nodded, but inwardly he felt conflicted. He had always been a man of routine. His daily walk had been a constant for as long as he could remember, a time of quiet reflection and a way to keep his mind and body sharp. The idea of cutting back, of slowing down, felt like an admission of defeat. But as Sarah's concerned gaze met his, he knew she was right. It was time to face the truth. Chapter 1. The Doctor's Visit, a New Perspective. Later that day, John's son, James, stopped by for their usual lunch together. As they sat around the dining table, John hesitated for a moment before mentioning the pain. James, ever practical and quick to act, insisted they go to the hospital for a checkup. And so, within an hour, John found himself sitting in a sterile white room, waiting for the doctor to enter. Dr. Miller was a kind, middle-aged man with a soft-spoken demeanor. He listened attentively as John described his knee pain and the challenges he had begun to face in his daily walks. After examining John's knees and reviewing his medical history, Dr. Miller leaned back in his chair, his face thoughtful but calm. "John, what you're experiencing is perfectly normal," the doctor began. "As we age, our joints, especially the cartilage, begin to wear down. It's part of the natural aging process. The cartilage acts like a cushion between your bones, and over time that cushion becomes thinner. Prolonged walking, particularly on hard surfaces, can put strain on your knees." John's heart sank. Walking had always been more than just a form of exercise for him. It was his time to connect with the world around him, to clear his mind, to feel alive. The thought of giving that up felt unbearable. "But," Dr. Miller added quickly, seeing the worry in John's eyes, "you don't have to stop walking entirely. It's about finding the right balance. Walking is still incredibly beneficial, but moderation is key. And there are two other things I'd like you to focus on to maintain your health after 70. Chapter 2. The Reality of Aging. As John and James left the hospital, the weight of the doctor's words hung in the air between them. John, usually talkative after doctor visits, remained quiet, his mind swirling with thoughts. James glanced over at his father, sensing the conflict beneath the surface. "Dad, you don't have to give up walking completely," James said gently, trying to ease his father's worries. "You just have to find a new rhythm, something that works for you. You've always adapted to change before." John nodded slowly. He knew James was right. Over the years, life had thrown its fair share of challenges his way, and he had always managed to adapt. But this felt different. This was his body, a body that had carried him through decades of hard work, that had hiked mountains, swum in oceans, and danced at weddings. Was this really the beginning of its slow decline? As they pulled into the driveway of his home, John looked out at the familiar neighborhood, the quiet street where he had lived for over 40 years, the park at the end of the block where he had spent countless mornings walking, the garden that he and Sarah had tended together. Everything looked the same, but John knew that something fundamental had shifted. Chapter 3: Embracing Aging. In the days that followed, John began to think more deeply about the doctor's advice. He had always prided himself on being active and healthy, but now he was being asked to accept the limitations that came with aging. It wasn't easy. There were mornings when he would wake up and feel the familiar ache in his knees, and a wave of frustration would wash over him. Why couldn't his body keep up with his spirit? But slowly, John began to realize that aging wasn't something to fight against. It was something to embrace. The doctor had spoken about how genetics and the natural decline of the immune system played a significant role in aging, and John started to see his body not as a betrayer, but as a companion that had carried him through so much. Acceptance. A new beginning. One morning, as John sat by the window, watching the world go by, he felt a shift in his perspective. He realized that he didn't need to stop walking entirely, just as Dr. Miller had said. He just needed to walk smarter, with more intention, and perhaps this change wasn't a loss at all. Maybe it was an opportunity to focus on other aspects of his health that he had previously overlooked. Chapter 4: The Power of Nutrition. Shifting nutritional needs. The doctor had also emphasized the importance of diet as John aged. Over the years, John had maintained a relatively healthy diet, but now he realized that his body's nutritional needs were shifting. He could no longer eat the way he did in his 40s or 50s without feeling the effects. John began to pay more attention to the foods he was eating. Protein became a central focus in his meals: lean meats, fish, eggs, and even plant-based sources like beans and lentils. Dr. Miller had explained that protein was essential for maintaining muscle mass, especially as he aged, and John could feel the difference when he incorporated more of it into his diet. Vitamins and minerals, the building blocks of health. But it wasn't just about protein. John also learned the importance of getting enough vitamins and minerals, particularly calcium and vitamin D, to support his bones. His morning walks in the sun helped with vitamin D production, but he also started taking a supplement to ensure he was getting enough. Sarah, always the nurturing one, began experimenting with new recipes that were rich in vegetables, whole grains, and healthy fats. Together, they found joy in cooking meals that not only tasted good, but also fueled their bodies with the nutrients they needed to stay strong. Chapter 5: Mental Stimulation and Social Connection. Engaging the mind. Dr. Miller had also spoken about the importance of keeping the mind active, and John took this advice to heart. He had always been an avid reader, but now he found himself diving deeper into subjects that challenged him. He picked up history books, novels, and even took an online class about astronomy. Each new piece of knowledge felt like a small victory, proof that his mind, like his body, was still capable of growth. John also rediscovered old hobbies that had once brought him joy. He dusted off his guitar, started painting again, and even began learning to play chess with his grandson. These activities weren't just a way to pass the time, they were a lifeline, keeping his mind sharp and engaged. The power of social connections. But it wasn't just about intellectual stimulation. John knew that staying connected to others was just as important for his mental health. In a world that often felt increasingly isolating, especially for older adults, John made a point of reaching out to friends and family. He joined a local walking group where he met other seniors who shared his love for the outdoors, and these connections became a source of strength for him. The walks might be slower, the conversations more reflective, but there was something beautiful about this stage of life, about the wisdom that comes with age, and the deep appreciation for each moment spent with loved ones. Chapter 6. The benefits of walking. Walking with purpose. With the doctor's advice in mind, John didn't give up his walks. Instead, he approached them with more intention. Gone were the days of aiming for 10,000 steps. Now, he focused on quality over quantity. Some days, he would walk 7,000 steps, and other days, 8,000. What mattered wasn't the number, but how he felt. John also began to pay attention to his posture while walking. Dr. Miller had stressed the importance of walking with an upright posture, keeping his chest open, his head high, and his arms swinging naturally. It took some getting used to. John had always been a fast walker, with long strides and a tendency to slouch. But he could feel the difference almost immediately. Walking with proper posture reduced the strain on his knees and back. His joints felt less stiff, and his breathing became deeper and more rhythmic. Each step felt more deliberate, more in tune with his body's needs. Chapter 7. The 3 Golden Rules for Walking After 70. Rule 1. Finding balance. One of the most significant takeaways from John's doctor visit was the idea of balance. The widespread belief that everyone should aim for 10,000 steps a day simply didn't apply to everyone, especially as we age. John had always been competitive with himself, pushing his body to meet certain goals, but now he realized that health wasn't about numbers. It was about listening to his body and finding what worked best for him. By reducing his daily steps to a more manageable number, John found that he could still enjoy the benefits of walking without putting too much strain on his knees. He also felt less pressured to meet arbitrary goals and instead focused on how walking made him feel. Rule 2. Maintaining proper posture. Walking with good posture became one of the most important habits John developed. By keeping his chest up, his head held high, and his arms swinging naturally, he could walk longer without feeling the same pain in his knees and back that had plagued him before. This simple adjustment made a world of difference. Not only in how he felt physically, but also in walking upright, made him feel more confident, more capable. It was a small change, but it had a profound impact on his overall well-being. Rule 3. Avoiding sudden stops. Dr. Miller had also warned John about the dangers of stopping suddenly during his walks. John hadn't thought much of this advice at first, but he soon realized how important it was. Stopping abruptly after a walk could cause dizziness, disrupt blood circulation, and even increase the risk of falls, something John couldn't afford to risk. Instead, John learned to slow down gradually at the end of his walks, giving his body time to adjust. This simple habit made walking more enjoyable and safer, allowing him to fully appreciate the time he spent outdoors. Chapter 8. The Importance of Mental Health in Aging. The Emotional Impact of Aging. As John adjusted to his new routine, he began to think more deeply about the emotional aspects of aging. The physical changes were one thing, but the emotional journey was just as important. With age came a sense of loss of friends, loss of independence, and at times a loss of purpose. John had always been an active and social person, but as his body slowed down, so did the world around him. Loneliness and isolation became real concerns, especially in a society that often prioritizes youth and productivity. But John wasn't ready to let these feelings define his later years. He knew that staying connected to others, whether through his walking group, family gatherings, or even weekly calls with old friends, was crucial to his emotional well-being. Chapter 9: Aging with Purpose and Grace. Finding meaning in the everyday John's journey wasn't just about walking less, it was about living more. By embracing the changes that came with aging, he found new ways to stay active, engaged, and fulfilled. His walks became moments of reflection, his diet became a way to nourish both body and soul, and his relationships became sources of strength. He realized that aging wasn't about abandoning the things he cherished. It was about adapting. It meant finding gentler, more mindful ways to engage in what he loved, ways that respected the limits of his body while still nourishing his soul. By making these adjustments, John discovered that he could still live a fulfilling, vibrant life, perhaps even more deeply connected to the present than ever before. Savoring the present. One evening, as the sun began to set and the warm hues of twilight painted the sky, John sat quietly on his porch. The world around him seemed to slow down, mirroring the pace he had come to embrace in his own life. His body may not have moved with the same vigor as it once did, but in these still moments, he felt more in tune with life's rhythm. Every breath, every heartbeat felt like a gift. In embracing the present, John realized that he wasn't losing anything at all. He was gaining a deeper appreciation for the beauty of each day. Conclusion: adapting to life more fully. John's journey taught him that the key to aging well wasn't in fighting against time, but in adapting to it. By embracing the changes, he found new ways to keep his mind sharp, his body active, and his heart full. Walking less didn't mean doing less. It simply opened the door to doing more of what truly mattered. With a renewed sense of purpose, John discovered that this stage of life could be just as meaningful and enriching as any other. Thank you for watching our video. If you found it helpful, please give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and subscribe to our channel, ZOZO Wisdom. Be sure to turn on notifications so you won't miss any of our future videos packed with valuable insights and wisdom.